Are you prepared to transform your well-being? I'm Sanjay Raja, and my mission is to challenge our perspectives on food, fitness, and overall health. I own a successful nutrition and fitness business based in Orlando, Florida. And through this experience, I've learned that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. From creating delicious and healthy recipes, to training elite athletes, and even writing the book, The Food Talk. I've accumulated a wealth of knowledge, but here's the exciting part. There's always more to discover. That's why I'm embarking on a journey to connect with leading experts, unveiling the secrets to a happier, healthier life. Together, let's explore innovative ways to enhance our well-being. This is Recipe for Wellness. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of our podcast, Recipe for Wellness. We are in season 4, and this is crazy. First 3 seasons were kind of a blur of the podcast. We're in season 3 of the TV show, and we've had a lot of interesting guests on throughout the years. But this one, I think people are going to relate to on a much deeper level, our guest here. So I was the owner of 4 dogs, and all of them were rescues. And those dogs, I can tell you, got me through so much. It got me through a bad divorce. They got me through a lot of things that helped me raise my twins. Yeah. And I'm not even being I'm not even overhyping these dogs at all. This is true. Dogs, cats, whatever your flavor is, they're with us on every stage of our life, and they're such a blessing. And so I am so excited to have on our podcast the extraordinary Dr. David Allman. He's a veterinarian, but he's the first veterinarian I have met who is an orthopedic surgeon for dogs, which is amazing. I didn't know that even existed until I met you.
Right.
So I cannot do your accomplishments justice. So please share with our audience who you are and what's your mission. Because I love your mission. The audience needs to hear it.
Thanks. Yeah, Sanjay. Thanks for having me. And thanks for that intro. And it is amazing the role that these 4-legged creatures can play in this, modern human environment. And that is something I'm passionate about, is making sure that they're healthy and fit for that role. And one of the things that has just fueled me over the years is just upholding our profession's relationship to making sure that we do as good of a job as people now expect of us. And so I love to help people find a very good veterinarian in their area if I can't be that for them. But so anyway, to go back to introduction, how did I get here? It is a wild story because I grew up at the age of 13. My mom was like, "You're not going to cause trouble all summer long." I called Dr. McLeod, our family veterinarian, and he said, "You could volunteer there this summer." And so I was like, great. So I volunteered there when I was 13, 14, 15. He finally started paying me minimum wage when I was 16. And that had such an influence on just even my understanding of like innate unspoken communication with dogs. People are like, "Isn't it hard? Your patients don't speak." I'm like, no, they speak. They talk to me all the time, right? And they have different personalities, and some of them don't say very many words, and some of them tell you more than you wanted to hear,
That's true.
But that upbringing was critical. And then I was in vet school, and I discovered like, wow, you could specialize in surgery and veterinary medicine. I just thought I was going to do everything, right? Like a mouse comes in, and a dog comes in, and then a bird and a cat. And if I wanted to, I could do horses and cows all under one roof. And then it was introduced to me like there's specialization possible. And really what's created that in veterinary medicine is a demand for excellence. It's extremely hard to do a total hip replacement, which is what this room behind me is designed for. And there is a piece of glass. So I'm not just sitting in an operating room right now. I'm in our viewing gallery that we have into a total joint replacement room for veterinary medicine. So total elbow replacement, knee replacement, hip replacement. And those things have been created out of a demand for just better, more involved care. And it's hard to specialize, to do that and every other animal that could walk into a vet hospital. And so when I learned of that, I knew I had an innate talent towards surgery and just
Mhm.
a, passion for it. And so, vet school at Texas A&M, and then an internship after that, right? So after
Yeah.
those 4 years, internship at the University of Georgia, surgical internship at Dallas Veterinary Surgical Center, residency at Michigan State University, and then now practicing surgeon in Austin, Texas.
So you and I could be on this podcast for 3 hours, quite
All
literally.
right.
But I'm gonna keep focused here, okay? Because I got so many
Okay.
great questions. And then we did a little bit of polling from our audience to give you some questions because I know
Nice.
these are some pressing questions. But here's the thing, folks, we recorded his episode of the TV show already in Crystal Beach, Texas. Such a great place. Enjoyed it. So you're going to have to watch the show to find out even more. We're going to allude
Yeah.
to some of the things on the TV show because this is a subject matter that's so near and dear and personal to everybody. Anybody who's ever had a dog, a cat, a pet, they become our furry friends. And moreover, they become our furry children. That's how I used to refer to my dogs,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so let's talk about this because right now we're in a bit of a crisis on many levels.
Okay.
Cost of healthcare for us has skyrocketed, number one. And so Americans are making decisions across the board about what to spend their money on. Do I take care of myself or do I pay for food, gas, rent, necessities? And then for everybody else who's got pets, if something, God forbid, were able to come up where they've got cancer or they've got a
Mm-hmm.
medical issue, people have to make a really hard choices, right?
Right. Right.
So I know the audience is going to want to know what are some of the things that you would recommend to the audience. So if a dog or cat, their pet, has any medical issue, what are
Mm-hmm.
some of the questions they can ask their vet? And what are some of the avenues they can take to help alleviate the worry of the cost of what's going to about to happen, whether it be a procedure, a test? What are some of the basic things they could do right off the bat?
Okay. So one thing is it's generally a relatively safe assumption to think about whatever condition your pet is experiencing as if it were a person, right?
Mm,
So if
yeah.
you get a cut on your toe, is it a cut that would get better with a Band-Aid and, some Neosporin? Or is it deep enough that you need to go get stitches and you're concerned about it, right? And
Hmm.
there's obviously always going to be some exceptions. Like in dogs, you have to get rid of the hair. You can't let them lick it. There's not too many people with that hairy of toes that want to lick it, right? So there's always going to be an exception to that. But don't make the mistake of just thinking that it's completely unrelated. And we've talked about that with food in the past, right? Even
Hmm.
that subject. So that's number one is all right, think about this as if it was your kid. Would you go to the doctor right now, right? Or
That's
would
a
you
great
wait
point.
till morning? Um,
Yeah.
like vomiting once. Okay, my kids vomit once. We don't rush to the urgent care with one vomit.
Mhm.
But if I have a kid that's becoming non responsive and has
Yeah.
vomited once, then I'm going, right? Or if they vomit 10 times and can't keep anything down and they're getting dehydrated, we're headed somewhere. But
Yeah.
one or two or three and they still want to play, or, they just can take in a little bit of water. So don't underestimate the value of that. And then, two, some of my colleagues are going to hate me for this, but don't underestimate the value of these large language models right now, Chat GPT, Claude, those kinds
Hmm.
of things. You take a picture of the vomit, you put it in, you tell it what's happening with your dog, and you see what it says. They're still a little bit overly cautious, which is great. You can also call your local urgent care or your local emergency hospital. The challenge, everybody knows, no secret, they're going to lean towards telling you to come in, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
and then lastly, to help people is we people ask me all the time, like, who's a good vet in this area? Who should I go to? And that's a tough question because some people still want the mom and pop veterinary shop
Hmm.
that has terrible decor in their lobby, building that hasn't been remodeled in 30 years and passes that savings on to their customer and maybe does little less and doesn't sell them on too much, right? And some people want to walk into a beautiful facility that doesn't smell like
Hmm.
a dog or cat, and they want to be told everything that could possibly be done, and then they can decide what they want to do, right? So there's this big spectrum of like, what is your expectation of the veterinary care you're trying to receive that influences
So
on,
let me
yeah,
let me stop you there because the reason why
yeah,
this is really important because I was in the medical field for a long time. I was in pharmaceutical, medical device. I did that too. And what I saw, and this is what's happening right now,
mm-hmm,
is that the single or solo provider practice is being gobbled up by group
mm-hmm,
practices, and those group practices now are being gobbled up by insurance companies,
okay,
right? So that's
yeah,
the model that it's going to. So finding a solo practitioner is really hard to do, and people love the one-on-one care they get from the solo practitioner,
right,
and they
right,
feel cost-wise it was way more affordable than going to these big conglomerate big groups. So
yeah.
explain to our audience and even me because I want to get educated on this, which is that what you're seeing in your field? And more importantly, is there a cost difference in a solo provider versus a big group?
Yeah. So we are seeing that in our field. It has evolved that way. We have experienced a large number, maybe some people say around 60% of the total market has been acquired by uh,
Mm,
private equity, corporate owned hospitals. They do have a fiduciary responsibility to their
mhm,
investors, right? And so that can influence them, some better than others. And then we still have some of these privately owned practices which really fall into two categories. Ones that are, highly cost effective, have a really high personal touch, and are, like I said, cost effective. And then you've got some others that are trending towards concierge type medicine, like you see in people, where they're limiting the
mhm.
number of clients that they take. They may have some sort of
Yeah.
annual plan. The cost may be a little bit more, but the service is there as well. So all of those things are evolving into our profession. And before we get too much further down that, I just one last thing on that first point to round
Please.
that home is that when you do find that veterinarian that fits your expectations, right,
Mhm.
whether it be here or here, if your pet is experiencing illness beyond something simple. It's not just preventative care. It's not just maintenance. It's not just routine vaccines and dewormers and heartworm medicine and rabies shots. It's like my pet's sick. I went in and today they're not better. Now you have to start to advocate for your pet to get a referral to a specialist. The best veterinarians I see know when to make that decision quickly and correctly. The danger
Yeah.
is when someone is underqualified and trying to treat a serious medical condition that needs to just hurry up and get to a specialist who can pinpoint it and get you on the right path, even if it's a little more expensive.
No, these are great points. And I love that we're framing this under what would you do for yourself and your kids, right? Because
Yeah.
it really then it makes it more personal and they're like, oh my God, I would do the same thing, right? I
Mhm.
didn't even think
Yeah.
of it that way
Yeah.
until I met you, by the way, which is
Okay.
crazy. And I thought I love my
Yeah. Yeah.
dog so much, but that really reframed it for me, which is excellent point. So the second question I have is that, and it's such a big topic, is insurance,
Okay.
right? So pet
Yeah.
insurance has become more prevalent. And I know so many friends of mine who have maxed out on their deductible because their dog either developed some issues, hip dysplasia or cancer, or whatever it may be. What are
Yeah.
some of the things that you would recommend in terms of picking pet insurance, either provided by an employer or independently? What are some of the things that people should look out for?
Yeah, that's good. And this is a really competitive landscape right now. And so it's evolving and new companies are coming out with new offerings. You've got the
Hmm.
challenge of do you go with some new company that has good offerings that may not be around in a few years, or do you go with something more tried and true? Hard for me to make really good, educated recommendations on individual companies right now. We see
Okay.
True Panion the most, and they've started to settle bills directly with veterinarians that saves
Okay.
the owner some out of pocket, coverage waiting on reimbursement. So some of the
Yeah.
models, most of the models, the pet owner pays the veterinarian and then submits the claim to the insurance company and receives reimbursement themselves rather than, the insurance company paying the veterinarian.
Oh, okay.
And so that may be an advantage of a company that some people might look for. Some employers are starting to offer, pet insurance as part of their
Hmm.
benefits, and so that
Yeah.
may help make that decision for somebody about which provider to choose from. Um, you definitely want to look into the pre-existing condition clauses as well as breed specific
Hmm.
exemptions, right? Like
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
surgery on a dachshund, right? Airway
Yeah.
surgery on a bulldog.
Yeah.
Those kinds of
Yeah.
things will be in the policy. Um, don't underestimate just doing your research on these, individual companies themselves. But as for right now, if you're a person that has, the personality of like peace of mind, right? Like better to
Hmm.
have it and not need it than need it and not have it, just makes sense, then get the policy, get
Yeah.
something and have
Yeah.
that. If you're somebody that it's going to make a significant financial difference there, and you've got to really look at the numbers, like do you pay on this policy every month or do you just hold out and hope that you don't experience this issue, then you can start looking into some other criteria. I could list a few of those things off right now if you kind of want me to
Hmm.
just spitball some of my thoughts on like, should I get a
Yeah.
policy or
Just
not?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question people are asking. Like, if I get a policy, what are the questions I should be asking? So, some one, two, or three questions that you think are really important that are simple.
Yeah, so questions to ask the insurance provider before you sign up with them. Um,
Hmm.
what are those breed exemptions? What
Hmm.
are what's the clause on pre-existing condition? How long after I get the policy can I have certain conditions be met? Like if you get the policy and a week later, X, Y, or Z condition develops, I've seen some of them where they won't cover anything beyond
Oh,
like
yeah.
basics until 6 months because they don't want people getting the policy knowing they've got this issue and then getting a $5,000 surgery a week later. So you do have to watch out for that. If you're trying to, game the system, they're aware of that. Um,
Yeah.
outside of that, honestly, I think that the internet can do a better job than me. And even like lately, like I
Sure.
put into Chat GPT, give me a top 5 pet insurance companies chart breaking down the pros and cons of each of those. They do a great job. But the kind of hack I was maybe alluding to for the listening audience here is the idea, okay, if you're getting a mixed breed dog, right, that's got enough of everything in it that it's in
Mhm.
that like 30 to 40, maybe 50-pound range. Let's go 20 to 50 pounds, mixed breed, 2 years old, healthy, and not overweight, good energy, no issues. Well, that's probably the lowest risk category, right? So if
Yeah.
you're going purebred puppy, well, that's kind of getting into some higher risk category. You're going purebred older dog. Yep, you're getting back into some higher risk towards the end of lifespan, et cetera. So, maybe there's a strategy around I'm going to get this insurance policy for my dog from the age of like 1 to 2, 2.5. And if no orthopedic conditions have developed or no major, illnesses develop, I'm going to drop that policy and I'm not letting them, go to the dog park and they're not getting loose from my backyard and running the neighborhood. And I don't have another dog in the household that starts fights with everyone in the household and bites them. And my
Yeah.
neighbor's dog isn't aggressive trying to attack my dog every time I go out, right? Like we're in a safe place. Or if you live on a ranch and you just let your dog run loose for 5 hours a day, maybe you want to hold that policy. So
Yeah.
let's say you're in that low risk group, your dog's now 2.5 years old, there's no problems. Maybe you drop the policy and you pick it back up at 8 years of age, right? If it's a smaller dog. Maybe you pick it up at 6 if it's a larger breed dog. Um, that's the only way I've been able to kind of like creatively start to tailor for that, small segment of the population that's kind of in between like I'm never going to get insurance. I don't insure myself. And the other side is just like, well, I'm just going to insure everything no matter what anybody says. I insure my refrigerator, my washer, my dryer, like that kind of thing. So I think that's the best I got on that.
No, it's good. So I had to make a really tough call on one of my dogs. And I'm sure you've seen this in your practice many, many times over. And people have experienced this, which is all my dogs were rescue dogs. And pet insurance was not offered at the time. And so what happened is this dog just got a seizure. So one seizure, and I said, okay, let me take it to the vet. The vet goes, okay, can be a transient thing. We don't know. And I said, listen, I love my dog. I really do. And at the time, I just gotten divorced and financially it was kind of all chaos, right? And I said,
Yeah.
what would the cost be to do some tests, an MRI, right? See what's
Mm-hmm.
going on. He said, you really want to know, right? I said, yeah, I do. He goes, it was going to be about $7,000 to $10,000 for that test.
Okay.
And I said, if it was your dog, what would you do? And he said, I deal with dogs every day. I've got a dog. I know you love your dog, and it's a rescue, so you don't have a medical background on these dogs. He goes, I wouldn't do it because it was just a transient thing.
Mm-hmm.
He said, it doesn't make a lot of sense. We could go in there and see nothing. We have no idea.
Right.
And I said, okay. Unfortunately, 5 months down the road, I woke up one morning, the dog had a major seizure, bit its own tongue off, and it died in its room. It was like a crime scene. There was blood
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. I had to clean everything up. And we had no idea. And so took the dog back to the vet, and he said, I'm so sorry. I said, I'm not blaming you for bad advice at all. And he goes, just one of those things where it was its time and it happened. Unfortunately, there was no other
Mm-hmm.
way we could tell that, what was leading up to it. So,
Yeah.
this is such a personal thing, and I'm telling you my story because it broke my heart, my kids' hearts, everybody's hearts that this happened. What do you tell patients that come in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you're an orthopedic surgeon for dogs. They got bad hip dysplasia. Because I had a dog that eventually we had
Yeah.
to put
Yeah.
down because hip dysplasia was so bad it couldn't walk anymore.
Right.
And
Right.
it lived a long life, 16 years, which is a long time.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what do you tell those patients, who are seeing the writing on the wall
Well,
and whether or not to go for a expensive procedure that could or
mm-hmm.
could not fix the issue,
Yeah.
or do
Right.
you just let it be? What do you tell patients?
Yeah. So tough scenarios. And
Hmm.
in scenario one with the seizure dog, the $7,000 to $10,000 MRI and workup doesn't cure the problem, right?
Exactly.
So that was a big deal, right? Because it would have been totally
Yeah.
different if they were like, look, spend 7 grand and get this outcome that fixes it.
Yes.
Then you're on board, maybe. Um, but um, and in the second scenario of the hip dysplasia case, right, where you're now
Hmm.
at 16 and the dog can't walk, and that is an actually a relatively common cause
Hmm.
of euthanasia is failure to stand, right? Going down. We call
Yeah.
it going down. The dog went down. They can't get up. They're dragging themselves across. They urinate, defecate, on
Yep.
themselves. And so
Yep.
those are two very real scenarios. There's a couple ways in my approach. Number one is that I love to be asked and answer, what would I do if this is my dog? I've heard people avoid that question. I've heard veterinarians avoid that question. I
Hmm.
have a responsibility to provide everybody in that exam room with my recommendation, right? I'm the
Yeah.
one that went to vet school. I'm the one that's been doing this for 20 years. Like, I should be able to like help them make the decision. That's what they're here for. I can't just go like, well, this is what it is, and now it's your decision. Good luck. So
Yeah.
I do answer that. But what I've noticed is how I would treat my dog might be different than how the person I'm sitting across from should or would treat their dog. So I
Yep.
answer it for them how I would treat it. I'm part owner of a surgical specialty hospital, so I might have gotten a total hip replacement on that hip dysplasia dog 5 years earlier, right? So it doesn't do you much good to hear how Dr. Allman would fix his dog. So then I'll
Hmm.
instantly say to them, I think a better question is what would I do if I were you, to the best of my knowledge of you and your circumstances, which I do make it a point
Mhm.
to get to know all of my people a little bit in the room. What's their philosophy on dogs and life and those kinds of things all matter.
Yeah.
And so that's what I try to do is what would I do if it was my dog, and what do I think I that you would be make you the most happy knowing the information you've shared with me in this 20-minute call. I mean, well, we're in person on that. And
Yeah.
then lastly, is in both of those scenarios, don't underestimate the value of a $200 consultation with a neurologist. You see,
Mm.
you think it's a $7,000 to $10,000 procedure, but why don't you just go and see the neurologist and talk with them and talk to the expert who sees every seizure dog that gets the MR and what comes of
Hmm.
it, and spend that $200. Go to an orthopedic surgeon with your hip dysplasia dog, even though you don't think there's anything that could be done, because maybe the orthopedic surgeon says, actually, there is hip dysplasia, but I found a torn ACL. And that's really why
Oh,
your dog is decompensated. Or in the neuro
yeah.
case, like, hey, maybe that was a brain tumor and there was nothing that was going to be done. And your pet would have been deceased in the same manner at the same time. But maybe they said, we ought to start this medication called Keppra, which is a relatively good anticonvulsant that has very minimal side effects. And maybe this would never happen again. Maybe it would, but for, $50 a month, we could start this and see how it goes, right? And you can come
Yeah.
back in a few months and check in. So you've got to, when something goes beyond general care, you have to advocate for seeing a specialist. And seeing me is $200,
Hmm.
$195. I don't know if there's tax on that or not. For one
Yeah.
ninety nine 99, you can come and see Dr. David Allman and ask all your questions. No, but yeah, that's really where I see most people is like not going and getting that consultation to be informed.
Yeah, where were you when my dogs were in this situation? Where were you, by the way?
I was right, probably right down the street.
Yeah, no, this is good stuff, and that's why I think the framework of saying if you were sick, you had a specific type of problem, you
Mm-hmm.
would go see a specialist. Same thing for dogs. I think that's going to really drive the point home for people, which is great. So, transitioning over to something that we got asked a million times, they said, make sure you ask them this.
Okay.
Okay, dog food. We can talk about this
Oh
all
boy.
day, every day, and twice on Sunday, right? So, dog food. I started out my career as a health and wellness specialist, still do it, and I get questions about food on a daily basis. So, there are a million pet foods out there,
Mm-hmm.
all out there. God knows
Yeah.
I bought this one German brand that was, grain free and all this stuff. It cost me a small fortune every month to buy this dog food. It did work for a time, and then I had to switch over. What are your thoughts for the general
Mm-hmm.
population to look for when they buy dog food?
Okay. Great lead in, big topic, right? They say at Thanksgiving,
Yeah,
at the Thanksgiving table, don't talk about religion, politics, and dog food. And
that's
so,
true.
um, all right, big picture is don't fall for the marketing on the front of the bag. Oh, look, that
Mm,
dog looks just like our dog. It must be good, right? Like this dog
yeah,
food is for Yorkshire Terriers. We have a Yorkie. That's great. Make sure, has salmon oil in it. Well, to put it has fish oil in it, they just got to add one drop, to they don't have to have therapeutic levels of fish oil to put a picture of a salmon on the front of the bag. So
right.
you got to flip it over and read the ingredients. I mean, that's what's happening in our own grocery stores, right? You got to flip it
Hmm.
over and read the
Yeah.
ingredients. If getting whatever, it doesn't matter. It's shocking what you can read on the back of it. And so that's rule number one. After that, there are some real things at play here that have come up in veterinary medicine. For instance, the grain-free diets were a miscalculated approach to a real problem. Okay,
Mm,
so Do grains cause inflammation in the body? And when they're consumed in excess or not grown properly, as
Hmm.
is most in the United States, yes, they do cause inflammation. Does that inflammation lead to allergies? Yes. And
Hmm.
so the private sector knew that. And then all these, grain-free dog foods blossomed, and the
Yeah.
variety just hit the shelf like crazy. And you know
Hmm.
what? It actually did, in many cases, improve allergies and inflammation. However, those diets, in order to maintain affordability for the consumer and profitability for the company, replaced the grains largely with legumes. Never
Yeah.
before in the history of mankind had we fed dogs and cats, 40% of their diet as English peas or chickpeas or lentils. Like, the farmers aren't struggling with their soybean crop getting eaten by coyotes, right? It's the
Yeah,
deer
yeah.
that are in the field eating the soybeans, not the coyotes. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that caused heart disease in
Yep.
dogs,
Yep.
feeding that grain. And then what happened is people said, well, don't feed grain free diets, those are bad. And it's like, no, it's not that the dog must eat grain, it's that you can't switch the grain for legumes and expect not to get heart disease with a bunch of legumes. The amount of grain that a dog has to eat, they're not obligate grain eaters. You can mix it up with other fruits and vegetables, other sources of carbohydrates like quinoa. And so,
Hmm.
anyway, the main answer to the question is the ingredients matter.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the simple roadmap would be, would you eat something that's got 60 ingredients and beef flavoring? Probably not, right?
Right, 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 right.
Right?
Yeah,
You want whole foods, whole
yeah.
ingredients, the best you can do. Which leads to the second question, which is you're seeing now like food delivery services with people, like HelloFresh and things like that. So
Right, right.
Farmer's Dog comes to mind now because that's the most
Mhm.
popular one. And moreover, two-part question. Would you recommend something like that? But is wet food okay to give every day? Or is
Yeah,
it a treat?
yeah, great. So I'll answer the questions directly and then revert back to the principle. So, farmer's dog, uh, they do not have ingredients lists posted in on the website the last I checked that
Okay.
are certain. They talk about some of the ingredients they use, and then when you get your specific order in the mail, it's got the ingredients on it.
Got it.
Okay. And one of the
Yeah.
biggest problems I've seen is the amount of oats that they'll use. Again, affordability, profitability. Dogs
Hmm.
don't need a bunch of oats in their food every day. Okay. There's
Yeah.
other things that can be put besides oats, and you can look up why oats might not be good in excessive consumption for humans or dogs, especially non organic oats. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then the second question that you were asking was about, let's see, it was
Wet
about
food.
the wet food. So, wet food, I love the concept of receiving naturally hydrated foods, right? Like,
Hmm.
you can't make up for the type of water that's in a cucumber by eating not even pickles, but let's say like the beef jerky of cucumbers, dehydrated cucumber, and then drink a glass of water. That's not the same for your body. It goes
Exactly.
beyond even my understanding of water, but it's relatively common sense. So I love to see whole food ingredients that haven't been processed, baked, dried, extruded as a kibble that won't mold or decay in a
Hmm.
bag for 6 months. So I
Yeah.
do like wet food. I think especially in cats, the concept of them getting water from their food is good.
Hmm.
It's more in line with their natural design slash evolution.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and so this leads to another topic, which is I'm the guy who's always been saying Americans have the most expensive urine in the world because we take
Yeah, yeah.
all these supplements and most of the body will not absorb, most of us won't absorb that much in the body, like 1,500
Right, right.
milligrams of vitamin C. You're going to get maybe 700 it doesn't work that way, right?
Yeah,
So,
that's good.
and keeping in line with this, which is people spend exorbitant amounts of money on their dogs because we care about them. But what's your thought on dog supplements? Because you go to the veterinary
Yeah.
office and they're going to say, "Oh, you probably need this and this and this and this," right? You know,
Yeah.
um, so what are your thoughts on what is needed? Now, every dog's different, every requirement's different. I get it, but is
Yeah.
there some things that you would say this is probably a good idea, or this is probably too much? You don't need to waste your
Yeah.
money on this.
Right, right. I mean, these are good questions. So I guess when you poll enough people, you can get some good stuff here.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so number one, relating supplements and food is that just because it's more expensive doesn't mean it's better.
yeah.
A lot of the better stuff is on the more expensive side, but don't let the price of it validate the product. You must read the ingredients. And then on the supplement list, it gets a little more challenging because what you're looking for is you're looking for evidence-based supplements, right?
Yeah.
Because sure, it might be safe, but does it work? And we cannot depart from the saying of let thy food be thy medicine. The
Hmm.
better and mammal, right? Human, dog, cat, right? The better a mammal eats, the less it's going to require exogenous supplements, especially man made synthetic
I think, yeah,
produced
yeah,
supplements. And so when we get into supplements, I can think of that are heavily evidence based. At the top of the list after food, right? Because food is the most evidence based, like
yes,
health influencing factor you can have, right? This is your
right.
food, like
Hmm.
within reason. Um, so when you cross over into supplements, probably my next number one favorite is humic and fulvic acid. And there is ion biome, which this was demonstrated in the human peer reviewed literature best by Dr. Zach Bush. It's basically dinosaur dirt that protects. It does so many things. We won't get into it, but it is
Sure.
dirt. Okay. And I
Yes.
love the
Yeah.
concept that it's dirt because it's not man made. Okay. It
Yeah.
needs to be available for everyone. We can't think that health is only available to the intellectual and financially well off individuals of 2026, right?
Yes.
Like health
Yes.
has to have been available for all of mankind. And
Yeah.
so I love the concept of dirt. After that, because so many of these dogs are eating these grains, fish oil arrives at the top of
Mm.
the evidence based supplement list, which is the old, omega 6 to omega 3 fatty acid ratio. And you don't want a ton of six in the grains and no threes. You want to bring that closer. And so, what do? We go catch a bunch of fish in the ocean, we wring the juice out of them and then drink it to make up for the fact that we just ate meat crackers for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I
Yep.
don't
Yep.
love that concept, but there's no doubt it's evidence based for individuals consuming dog food as we currently know it in dry form. Um, and then on the list, you can get into undenatured type 2 collagen for arthritis. You can get into like milk thistle for
Mm.
liver, and you can get into like, turmeric for joints. And there's a list that I just cannot do justice of all that. But as far as like
Sure.
what my consumers come to me with, right? My patients, um,
Yeah.
they're oftentimes doing glucosamine and chondroitin sulfate, which has
Yeah.
almost, if not zero, evidence in
Yeah.
literature for doing
That's
anything. And so
yeah,
that's
that's the
probably the
most
number one.
consumed.
Yeah.
Isn't
Yeah.
that the
Yeah.
most
That's the number
consumed
one one.
supplement?
Yeah, that's where the number one supplement I see coming in for arthritis is glucosamine chondroitin sulfate, and it has the least amount of evidence, and you'd be much better off spending your money on better food or fish oil.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
there's one. Hey, there's one.
I know, I love that. That's so good. So I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about this because you are an orthopedic specialist for dogs and cats. Is that correct? For both?
Yeah, yeah,
Right? Okay.
yeah. Small
So
animal is what they call it.
small animals. Okay. So I think in doing our research and talking to people, one of the things that goes most undiagnosed is dogs that have ACL tears.
Mm.
I am a recipient of an allograft from my days of professional athletics. I've got a 30-year-old allograft for an ACL rupture that I had,
Yeah.
and I feel much better. I can talk about it because when I had the problem, I knew it was there, got the surgery,
Yeah.
all good to go now. Our furry friends cannot talk to us
Hmm.
and talk to us about it. You run a series of clinics all throughout Austin, Texas, very high end. You have people fly in from all over the world, which is amazing. There's a need for that. With your expertise, because you were absolutely the only guy to talk about this right now. What are signs and symptoms to look for, and what are things that the dogs or cats will be doing that
Yeah.
will want to basically create a warning sign saying there
Hmm.
could be an orthopedic issue here?
Yeah. Yeah. Good question. So cats a little bit different. They become more sedentary. So it's harder to see
Oh,
that they're
okay.
limping. It's harder to tell anything's wrong. You just notice that they don't jump on the couch. They don't jump on their favorite windowsill. They hide under the bed, right? They come out at
Okay.
night. Like that's the cats can be super subtle. If you see them limping, you're lucky and it's bad,
Got
right?
it.
By the time it gets to
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Dogs, it's limping, right? Or
Hmm.
especially when they first get up. And a lot of people are like, yeah, he was limping when he first got up, but he would get better within 10 or 15 steps. So we didn't think much of it. That's the early sign. And actually, we have really good evidence that if we correct these dogs early, we can prevent their ACL from tearing. So that's a huge problem with the people that come to me is that they're like, what? We could have intervened on this before it tore and prevented the tear with the same
Yeah.
surgery we're trying to treat it with. We were just watching it, hoping it was going to get better. And I'll tell you, as much as I seek truth and try to avoid surgery, even though I'm obviously biased to some degree, I have not seen a significant number of ACLs that start to show up as lameness
Hmm.
actually resolve or not progress to a complete ACL tear. So
Got it.
early diagnosis, early surgical intervention with the most evidence-based procedure, which is the TPLO, tibial plateau leveling osteotomy,
Hmm.
is absolutely the way to go about it. And it gets back to that thing of we went to the vet, he was limping, they gave us some anti-inflammatories, and the dog got so much better, or dog got better, and then we saw it limp again. It's like, well, go to an orthopedist and just ask him about it. Hey, my dog's limping. I think it's all good, but can you take a quick look and tell me what that might have been? I'd just like an opinion on this from
Yeah.
somebody who sees limping
So,
dogs every day.
yeah, so for my benefit, because I'm going to ask you this question. So I was in orthopedic surgery working with surgeons all the time with medical devices. And one of the treatments to alleviate or just to postpone a total knee was a hyaluronic shot,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Is there something similar for dogs where basically it mimics the cartilage between the knees versus doing a total knee replacement?
Hmm. Right. So, as far as the progression of an ACL, and in the dog, sometimes we call it a CCL. It's the same ligament,
Mhm.
just a little different because they have four legs, we have two, but we'll
Right.
use the term ACL. So, for a dog in the ACL, there has been no shown injection that reduces or stops the progression of a partial
Mm.
ACL tear from becoming complete. And so, yes, we do have platelet-rich plasma, PRP injections. We have hyaluronic acid injections,
Yeah.
that is some of that viscous cushion that you're talking about. We have stem cell therapy that we can do. We have some other fancy things. We have steroids we can inject in joints, but we generally don't for this condition because we want to treat the root cause and preserve the ACL, which has a lot to do with the fact that dogs' knees are even less likely to do well with non-surgical management than a person because of the shape of their tibia. And
Yeah.
so the problem is that dogs will hide it. They'll look good. They'll won't let you see that they're limping. They'll tough it out way more. And people go, oh, look, he's doing great. We didn't get that surgery. They said, look at how great. It's like, well, wait till they're 8, 9, 10, 11. now they're 3 or 4 powering through it. So we're thinking about the whole life. And then
Hmm.
lastly, we do total knee replacements in dogs. The good news is that it's less common just because of the lifespan of the dog,
Yeah.
right? They don't
Yeah.
have 15 years after an ACL tear usually to then
Yeah.
need the total knee replacement. But we do see cartilage defects from birth that result in the need for a total knee replacement earlier on. And so a lot of times we'll use injections once or twice. Like, let's say it's not an ACL, we can't fix it, or it was an ACL that's beyond that. We might use injections for an intermediate period to really define that, oh, the problem is the knee, because when we inject it, it gets better. And then that could lead into a knee replacement. But that's about the only place where we really use those injections in the joint. We have some
Wow.
tendon and other ligament stuff that we might inject, like the Achilles or the
Gotcha.
triceps or some shoulder stuff. But yeah.
So what would you say, you being a specialist in orthopedic surgery, how many orthopedic surgeons for dogs are there around the country?
Yeah. So the number one most reputable certification for specialization in surgery is the American College of Veterinary Surgeons.
Hmm.
And I think there's something like 1,600 active surgeons,
Okay.
and slightly probably more weighted towards numbers that do orthopedics than
Yeah.
are soft tissue. Those are the kind of the two big groups that fall under the general surgical specialization. But yeah, I think that's a good round number.
Okay. And
So
so
there's
to
one near you. There's one
Okay.
near
All
you. Yeah.
right. Listen, I've gotten to know you. I've learned so much in a short amount of time. You're just not an orthopedic surgeon for dogs. You're just somebody who's just a wealth of knowledge. We've learned so much, in our interactions together. And I passed on this knowledge to all my friends who have dogs and everything. They're like, "Can we call him?" I said, "I'll ask him." I'll definitely ask him. So you're the go-to guy. So you and I can keep talking forever on this. I love this subject and you're so passionate about it. But
Yeah.
now is the time. It's the shameless plug hour, which I want you to tell our audience where they can find you,
Yeah.
what you're going to be doing next, and what awesome things you got coming up. Because we are so honored to have you at this stage of your career because you're just only going up this way. You're going to be everywhere in every household very soon. And so I'm just lucky to have you on early,
Yeah.
before you get
Thanks.
too booked out. With that being said, but share with our audience what all the amazing things you have and where people can find you and interact with you.
Yeah. Cool. Hey, thank you for that. And yeah, you know, shameless plug. Everything that I've done has been driven by wanting to solve a problem I had or pursue the next level of excellence. That's how everything I've got has become. And it
Yeah.
started off with I was just having the TPLO conversation with so many owners. I created TPLOinfo.com.
Nice.
And there's also a
Nice.
video that if Google TPLO surgery and go to videos, it's usually the top one. You'll probably recognize the voice that explains that really, really well. But after that, what happened is the modern pet owner, right, the family member, was
Yeah.
coming to me and saying, "You're doing this surgery, and then we're putting our dog in this cone, but we're like with our dog all day.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
somebody needs to do something about this cone of shame, right? The
Yep. Yeah.
Elizabethan
Yeah.
collar." And it just so
Yeah.
happens that I'm married to a seamstress, which is really cool.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so she and I invented Lick Sleeve, LICK
That's
sleeve,
right.
SLEEVE.com. And it's really cool. So they're e-collar alternative. It's the highest grade, medical type fabric, best solutions that we know of in the entire
Yeah.
industry. So we've tried to
Yep.
make the absolute best product there. So you can check that out, and
Hmm.
maybe your pet doesn't have to wake up in a cone, and they can wear a comfortable, breathable, durable, antimicrobial fabric, Lick Sleeve. And then from there, I started to say, you know what, I'm not going to be able to do surgery forever. and I can't
Yeah.
reach every patient. So maybe what I could do is I could create a hospital that has such high standards that anywhere in the country, if somebody said go to a VROC, you walk through the doors and you know what you're getting, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's going to be exceptional care, appropriately priced. I mean, you
Hmm.
just like this operating room has, positive pressure, HEPA filtration, laminar flow
Hmm.
diffusers over the surgical table. It's got, full on striker lights and booms, Arthrex arthroscopy tower,
Oh
this
yeah.
Elon 4 Ascalap special equipment driver. We got monitors. We've got 4K cameras in the lights. We've got the floor is designated to show where sterile people stand and where non-sterile
Yeah.
people stand. The table allows for fluoroscopic imaging during surgery, so we have real-time X-ray. Like, it's not going to be the cheapest surgery you could find, but we are appropriately priced. Right now, we're 10 to 20% less than the other surgical specialty hospitals in our area. And
Yeah.
that's remarkable with this facility. We're surgeon owned and operated. And so
Hmm.
we do determine what our prices are. Nobody tells us how to price our procedures. We have an advisory board and a group of
Great.
surgeons that meet together and we decide that. And if we get a case that has a curable condition and the owners have a reasonable amount of finances for us to fix, and we discover halfway through it needs something else, well, we have flexibility in how we approach that scenario. We don't just say, well, sorry, we made it, $5,000 in, you're on your
Hmm.
own, or you have
Yeah.
to put your pet to sleep because you don't have 10,000, you only have $8,000. We have a little bit more flexibility on how we approach that, right? But we still have to be financially responsible, or we can't help anybody. But that's been a dream of mine, is to also, the surgeons here are, subject to peer-to-peer scrutiny on their outcomes.
Mm.
We talk about this stuff. You
Yeah.
have a meeting every Wednesday where anything that went wrong gets brought up, and we go through that case and we figure out how to make it better. And so we're pursuing excellence and appropriately pricing ourselves.
So you've got the VROC clinics all throughout Austin, correct? All around the
Well,
Austin
so
metropolitan.
far, just yeah. So I am a part of multiple. So an emergency hospital here and a mobile
Hmm.
surgical practice here, but VROC, this is the 17,500 square foot prototype mothership launch,
Hmm.
and now we're starting to build the team to expand into other cities near you.
Yeah, no, that's greatly needed, honestly. Outside of just being on the podcast and getting to know you, your family, um, I just everybody we brought on the show has a sense of purpose, a higher calling to help others,
Yeah,
right? And you're the
yeah, yeah,
first that's helping our furry kids and furry friends. So, once I met you, I was like, this guy's gonna be great. He's gonna be a household name, and that's where you should be because I've
yeah.
I have talked to some veterinarians before I brought you on. I just wanted to kind of gauge the land and see what's out there. But that being said, it's it's amazing when we did a polling for the show before we brought you on. When people said, "My dog, I will do literally anything for my dog," right?
Yeah. Right,
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
literally anything for my dog. No cost is too great. I will go into debt for my dog. And we see this. People buy
Yeah.
exorbitant things they don't need, but you're the voice of reason to calm everything down, say you don't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars. Just take the appropriate action. And this is the reason why this is going to resonate with so many people. So I'm a big fan of yours. I'm going to be leaning on you a lot. But that being
Thanks.
said, you've got the VROC clinics. You've become kind of the sounding board for reason in the whole industry, trying to normalize the industry, educate the population. What
Yeah.
other things you got coming down the road that people can be look on the lookout for you?
The I've had to taper my desire to react to every new idea that I have, and I'm building a team around me that can help me carry out new endeavors and ideas. They certainly
Yeah.
exist. But right now, Lick Sleeve and V Rock and my family, right, is I got
Hmm.
5 kids, so beautiful wife, all that. I would say those are my two primary focuses. And then what's naturally evolving, and for the record,
Hmm.
naturally evolving is a bit of a personal brand, right? And so
Yeah.
and really I have an obligation, I think, to share this information with people, despite whether I'd rather, go and be in the woods, hiking with Mother Nature. So I guess stay tuned for that. More to come on the Dr. David Allman show.
Well, you know what? It's only, it's so funny. People say it's only a ridiculous idea until it actually happens, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah,
and
yeah.
guess what? You are well on your way because, folks,
Thanks.
he is on season 3 of our show, Recipe for Wellness. We went out to, I'm going to give you a little preview of how
All right.
great episode this was because you got to watch it to really see all of it. Let's just say we got a stunt dog named Gilligan. We saw a bull shark being pulled out of the water, people taking selfies and then throwing it back in the water. This is Texas. What do you expect, right? We got some of the greatest B-roll footage you could ever get. I also got his beautiful kids, 2 of his daughters I met, lovely wife, and they tried some exotic fruit from Bali and they were champions. They just dove right into it. It was
Yeah,
amazing. We had a little bit of
yeah.
everything on this episode, so I
That was
can't wait for
good.
people to see it. But
Yeah, it was
you will
amazing.
catch Dr. David Allman on season 3 of our show,
Yeah.
episode 2, and that is right around the corner in 2027. So I'm super excited. It's almost here. But we're going to be posting some clips and such for him, social media wise, of all the great things he's doing. You can also find his website on our website at myrecipeforwellness.com. Just click on his link, VRock, and we are a national show, national audience, now international as well with the podcast. Listen, he gets people from all around the world, so tell him the show sent you, and he'd be happy to see you because he's truly passionate about what he does, and we like to work with people who are very passionate, and their goal is just to make the world a little bit better place. So
Yeah.
that being said, anything else you'd like to share with our audience, Dr. Allman, before we sign off?
Yes. I love your t-shirt. I think we got to start a new trend where you have an animal on your shirt every time we're
Yes,
together. That's
yes.
definitely true. And then the sloth, for people who can't see it, the sloth has become my new favorite animal because I believe it's true that they have more biodiversity living on them than any other animal known on Earth. And if you just look into like the algae that grows on their hair and turns them green to match the trees, and like the number of
Yes.
like moths and weird things that live underneath them. And so these guys are cool. They represent the biodiversity that I think is just so critical. And Sanjay, thank you for amazing time out at the beach.
Hmm.
It was a pretty miraculous film session, right? Like
Yeah.
we were just out there. It's live. That's live. And then thank you for seeing the talent in me and calling it out. So
No worries. Yeah, you're only going to be growing. We want to be part of that journey with you, and we can't wait to see what you're going to do next. So, for everybody
awesome.
else, catch this episode of our podcast Recipe for Wellness on all the major podcasts. Is going to come out very quickly. So we're making an announcement. We'll be tagging Dr. Allman on his social media. So look out for that. So we got a lot of announcements real quick. I'm going to get right through it, which is season 2 is airing nationwide on PBS all over the country. Season 1 is about to launch on 3 new streaming channels today, which is awesome.
All
And then we're
right.
growing on all these other streaming channels every month thereafter. Season 1 is going to be on network TV starting Q4 of this year. We're going to start with NBC Sports first. That was a big win for us, so we're so excited.
Yeah, that's huge.
And so every month we're going to have a new launch. So I'm super excited. I'm super happy to have Dr. Allman, and we're going to have all these amazing guests on the podcast and the TV show. So big things are coming, and I can't wait for everybody to see it. But thank you again, sir. We appreciate your
Yeah,
time. You are going to be the go-to guy since you are doing it already, and I can't wait for all the questions to fly in. Thank you to our audience
great.
for listening, and you will find this podcast wherever you receive your podcasts, and we'll see you for the next episode.